Pops?
Yes.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
the push to be more anti-consumer
Yeah.
is gaining steam.
Oh my God. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so we have news from Honda,
Yeah.
GM,
Yeah.
VW,
Yeah.
which is an Audi too.
Yes.
Is Nissan doing it? I'm not sure if Nissan's doing it yet.
Yeah.
Ford's been doing it for years.
Yes.
Lease returns.
Well, Ford hasn't been doing it for years. They just require you to get a payoff from the originating dealer on a
Which
lease,
is essentially doing the same thing.
they're allowing the dealer to make a profit on the payoff.
So what are we talking about here?
Oh, we're talking about that these captive lenders will no longer give third parties or off-brand dealers a payoff for their customers' leases.
So let's make this super clear. If you have an off-lease vehicle or a vehicle coming due at the end of your
Yes.
lease and you want to go, I don't know, sell it to Carvana because Carvana's offering you, I don't know, $5,000 over your residual right now.
Yeah,
You can't do that if you're a Honda owner or a Honda lessee.
yeah.
Can't do it if you're a GM lessee. Can't do it if you're a Ford lessee. Can't do it if you're a Nissan lessee. Can't do it if you're a VW lessee.
Or an Audi lessee.
Or an Audi lessee.
Yeah, and there's probably others.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is new. Ford is the one that's not necessarily new. They've always required you to go back to the dealership for the payoff. This is new, though, from like Honda, for example. That
Yes.
just came out a couple days ago.
Yes.
And this is super anti-consumer as far as I'm concerned.
That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. Yes.
Okay. Do you have any? What's your take?
Well, do I think it's fair? It adds, people that lease vehicles have three options at the end of the lease. Option number one is they can turn it in and walk away. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they have to pay a disposition fee and any excess wear and tear that might be on the vehicle when they do that. Option number two is they can turn it in and lease another vehicle from that brand. Mm-hmm. Okay, at which point the captive lenders might waive lease disposition fees. They might waive security deposits in the future, things like that. And the third option has always been that you can buy it for the preset residual value that was set at the time you signed the lease.
Yep.
And in most cases, that value has been greater than what the market value is of the vehicle. So you'd be paying
most cases with an asterisk. Most cases in 2021.
Most cases prior to 2021. Leases were always set up so that if you bought it at the end, you were typically paying more than you should have.
Oh, more than you should have.
Yes,
Yeah. No, I thought you were making the point that residual values right now are lower than what the actual market value is of the vehicle.
Now we find ourselves in a situation where if you're returning a lease today, that the residual value is typically substantially less than what the market value is. So people that had been leasing cars had been taking those to Carvana or CarMax or Vroom or other dealers who were willing to pay the market value for those cars, and the customers were pocketing the profit.
Yep.
Now, that caused a situation where the branded dealers who leased those cars weren't getting those leased cars back at the end of the lease. So the leasing companies have said that they will no longer provide a payoff to these third parties, that they'll sell the car to the lease customer as stipulated and agreed
in their
upon
contract,
in their lease contract. But since they are not the owner, the lease company is. The lease company can decide who gets the payoff.
So how are you not as frustrated by this as I am? You seem like this is normal. This is what happens. No,
because I understand this is an aspect of the car business that I understand from having spent 43 years in it.
That doesn't make it bad.
I didn't say it was. You think it's totally anti-consumer.
It is.
And I see it as the consumer can still take advantage of the profit. They just have to go through one more step. Nobody is taking away their ability to reap the benefits of paying less than market value for the vehicle.
But I also know from personal experience and from just life experience, when you add friction to a process, people fall off. People
Well,
absolutely fall off.
that's
And so
the lender's
reason-
hope. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And so for these manufacturers and for the captive lending arms that do
Yes.
the leasing, for them to come out in a situation where, of course, their dealer body is coming to them and saying, hey, we don't have cars right now. Get us cars. We need cars. All these off-lease vehicles, people are selling them to Carvana, CarMax,
Yeah.
Vroom. They're not bringing them back to us.
Yes.
Do something about it.
And
so
they
what
are.
okay, we're going to add friction to the process.
Yes.
We're not going to allow CarMax to essentially float the money all around so that we can get the lease paid off.
It's not even float the money. It's just we're not going to allow CarMax to be able to make the payoff.
That is adding friction to the process for the consumer. And there are a lot of people out there, Dad, that are already so confused by the car buying and selling process and the lease transition process. Like, they are already so confused that now it's just gonna be like, okay, I'll just return it back to the dealership. And yes, to me, $3,000 in positive equity for a lessee, that should go in my pocket. Now, it's more challenging because I can't just take the advice that we gave a year ago, which is, hey, just go to Carvana and get a quote. They'll handle it.
Here's the difference, if I may. These residual values were never meant to be less than market value. They were never calculated to be less than market value. And there's been a perfect storm between chip shortages, rubber shortages, COVID-19, the pandemic, all that has created a situation that is abnormal.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think if there was some sort of inverse situation
Yeah.
where residual values were the opposite of what they are
Yeah.
now, that these leasing companies would be coming out around Christmas time and saying, hey, we've been charging you too much on your lease. We're actually going to give you some money back.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Right now we're in a situation where the residual values are set too low, right?
Yes.
Relative to what
Yes.
the vehicle's actually
Yes.
worth.
Yeah.
So you're in a positive equity
Yeah.
situation. I'm saying, what if it was the inverse, where the residual values were set too high and we needed to give some money back? Like,
Well, they used to do that in open-end leases, where the customer was responsible for the residual value at the end, and
so maybe that's what we need to go back to.
so and everybody at that point in time agreed that that was an unfair onus to place on the customer. Okay, so that it's very difficult to find any leasing company that will do an open-end lease today.
Yeah.
Okay, the idea was to protect the customer from signing that a vehicle was going to be worth $15,000 at the end of the lease, and it turned out it was only worth $10,000, and they had to come up with the extra $5,000. Okay, so now that we're in a situation where
It's not worth 15, it's worth 17.5.
it's worth 17.5, but if it was really worth 14 and the customer could buy it for 15 and the customer decided not to, then that becomes the lease company's problem, not the customer's problem. And so the lease companies are pushing back right now and saying, well, if there's a profit to be had, we want part of it, or we want to be able to push where these vehicles go.
Yeah.
So that we can try and help our dealer body and ourselves moving forward to hopefully finance these vehicles again if they're at our brand's dealerships.
I mean, if the inventory is returned to the dealership, everyone within that brand makes more money.
Exactly.
Because the dealership's going to turn around and sell it. So the dealership's happy they have inventory they can sell.
Yes.
The financing is likely going to be through the captive lender.
Again, yes.
Yeah, so from the dealership perspective, this makes plenty of sense.
And from the captive lender's perspective, it makes sense.
From
And since they're the owner of the vehicle,
from everyone's perspective except for
yours and the consumers.
I just know that
let me make it easy for you.
Okay.
If you had fronted the money on the lease, you would want some say into how it could be disposed of.
Trust me, I don't disagree.
Okay.
And I think Ford is actually, they sit in the best position here in the sense that they've done for the longest time.
Well, and they tell their dealers, the originating dealer, you make the payoff. Here's what the payoff is. You can tell that third party whatever you want to tell them.
So I'm just
you can tell the Chrysler dealership down the street that's trying to trade it.
Yeah.
You can add whatever you want to that payoff for yourself.
That's why I'm just trying to wave the flag. It's like we've seen. There's been an operating system for a long time.
Yes.
And it's been one way. And now, when things are getting tough, we're just seeing it swing. Which is life. I get it. It's life. I totally understand.
It's just an anomaly at the moment, and everything will return to normal.
But it
by the
reinforces-
time the next leases come due
You'd
3
think
years from now.
But it reinforces
Yeah.
how, as a consumer,
Yeah, you're screwed.
no one's got your back.
Well, why would you think they would?
I'm just saying.
You know, the bank isn't in this to do the best they can for the consumer. The bank's in this to do the best they can for their stockholders.
And if they see you sitting pretty,
yeah,
they're going to figure out ways within the rules of the contracts you
Yes.
signed to make it swing back in their favor. That's all I'm trying to say. Maybe it's just because I'm 25. Maybe it's because I'm a little kid and I don't have a. But
well,
to me,
in
this
2 weeks
seems.
when you turn 26, you'll see it.
It's just not. It's not.
It doesn't seem fair. I
It's-
get
yeah,
it. I get what you're saying.
Thank you.
But you know, you got to don't take this wrong when I say it, but you got to put your big boy pants on and understand how the world really works.
Well, I feel like part of our responsibility is to help people understand what's going on.
Yes.
As well.
No.
So if you are in a situation, let's say you have a Honda lease coming.
Yes.
You can still sell it to Carvana. The thing is, you're going to have to buy it.
Buy it first.
And-
so
and
you
you
have to
don't-
buy it. You have to wait to get the title. Then you
Yeah.
have to title it in your name, and then you can go sell it
And
to
buying
Carvana.
it, you're
And
gonna-
that might take an extra 2, 3, 4 weeks
Yeah.
in order to accomplish that. And the value,
It's going to change.
the market value, could go down.
Watch our weekly market updates.
over those 2, 3, 4
And you're
weeks.
also going to, when you have to buy the vehicle, you're going to have to likely, unless you're going to pay cash, finance it.
Yes.
You're going to have to pay a dock
Yeah,
fee at the dealership.
But the reality is that you're going to finance it for such a short period
No,
of
I
time
know,
that there's
I know.
so little interest that would be paid that
I'm just painting the pictures
it's
of
a
it.
negligible impact on the entire thing. The big impact
It's the time.
is forcing the customer to have to buy it first before they can sell it to somebody else. But I get it. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I get what the banks are saying, and I get what the dealer body's screaming about, because they're the ones that have the most money invested in all this. You know, the land these dealerships sit on, the brick and mortar buildings, that's all expensive.
You know
And
what
they
else
need
is
inventory.
You know what else is expensive?
Us?
The mental toll of not being able to take my off-lease car to Carvana.
Yes, I would.
And
sue
I am
for-
not necessarily an advocate for these online car dealerships.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you
No,
can make
you're-
money
we're-
and make
we're-
it more
yeah,
easily.
Yeah, no,
I
you're
like
an
that.
advocate for the
What was the
customers.
first website I ever made?
Moneymakingguru.com.
I was like 8 years old. Moneymakingguru.com. It's all about making money.
Yeah.
And the best way to make money is, I don't know.
Okay,
sell it at the car
and
lot.
so
Sorry,
then you
that's-
should understand why the lease companies are doing what they're doing, because they got their ideas from the money making gurus out there.
Join YAA.com. Consider becoming a member. Thanks for doing this, Pops. Join the community
pleasure.
forum as well.
Yes.
If you are buying out a lease car
Yes.
and then selling it to one of these third-party dealerships, or just not the originating dealership, let us know what that experience is like back on the community forum. I'd be happy to hear that.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks, handsome.